Hey, Tyler.
Oh, hey, what?
Hey, did you know that Dad's Meat World has its own gear shop?
You do?
We have a gear shop? How does that even work?
That's very simple. You visit dadsmeetworld.threadless.com and you can get yourself a shirt, a hoodie, magnets, stickers, all kinds of stuff with our logo or even our beautiful faces on it that you can wear or slap up on your laptop, your phone, or whatever you want to put it on and show your love for our podcast.
Wait a minute. You're telling me I can get a picture of my face that I can wear?
That's right. Won't your wife love that?
You're sucking up to me.
My wife would love that indeed. And I think I would greatly appreciate it if I saw more Dad's Meat World stuff out there because I think we have some fans and I think they want to represent.
That's right. So go to dadsmeetworld.threadless.com.
I'm going there right now.
I'm cold. God help me.
Welcome back to Dad's Meat World, a Boy Meets World deep dive podcast where every single week, two dads will sit down and talk about the wonderful show that is Boy Meets World. I am one of your dads, Tyler.
And I'm your other daddy, Brett.
Yes. So, a little peek behind the curtain real quick. You know, we have a few episodes that have come out so far, and this has been nothing but fun and excitement. And hey, you know, we got some people talking to us saying that they're enjoying the podcast, and for those people coming up to us, thank you. You're wonderful, and we greatly appreciate it.
Indeed. We love hearing back from you guys, and we love that you guys love listening to us. So, hey, send the love and drop us an email or a review, and we'll share your love with everyone else.
Yeah, give us those grades. We want to hear about it.
Exactly.
Oh, boy, Brett, we have a doozy of an episode today, if I do say so.
Oh, we do. It deals with the future.
It does. Future can be quite scary, especially when we've already hit the time period in which they are discussing.
We really
But before we get into that, Brett, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay. Family had a little bout of illness over the weekend, so I got to take a sick day Monday, but yeah, doing
Nice.
okay. Our kids are getting ready for Halloween around these parts as we record before Halloween. Yes, we've already recorded the Halloween-themed episode, but yeah, we'll further peek behind the curtain.
Yes. Yeah, this should be coming out right around Halloween-ish, or a little before then, so just in case, happy Halloween.
Yes, happy Halloween, yeah.
Hopefully everybody is who they say they are.
I hope someone's not who they say they are. I kind of like the surprise. How are you guys
That's
doing,
true.
Tyler? How's everyone at your house?
Well, we just had a spout of COVID in our house. And so it kind of delayed you and I recording a little bit, just due to, standing for too long and then getting dizzy and then feeling like, I couldn't feel things or getting super cold. So I had truly a mild case of it, but I just was still useless and couldn't do a whole lot. So
I'm sick!
yeah. So luckily I'm back to full health and ready to go.
Yes, and we're very grateful for it. So shall we dive in?
We shall. Do you want to give us that summary and deep dive real quick?
I will. This is the 9th episode of Season 1, Class Pre-Union, wherein Mr. Feeney gives an assignment to the class to predict where their life will be by their 20th class reunion, which, just for fun, would take place, since this was 1993, in 2023. So, oh no. Man,
No,
my
2020.
math is off. 2013. I do
2020.
I do math about as good as about as well as.
So for clarification, The class is considered the graduating class of 2000.
Yes.
Thus, the 20th reunion would be in 2020.
Yes,
The only reason I'm making sure we correct this right now is because I have all numbers for 2020, and it's going to be real hard to do this episode if I don't have those numbers.
Dear listeners, I did not get much sleep last night, and I don't like numbers anyway, so.
Don't worry, I'm bringing the numbers.
Yes, we're recording this about 3 years after the projected Clash reunion. This episode was written by Ed Decter and John J. Strauss, directed by David Traynor, originally aired November 26, 1993, and currently enjoys an IMDb rating of 7.5.
Well, we begin in the Matthews household in a interesting camera view. It's actually kind of a parody of 60 Minutes of a little clock playing at the beginning, and then Cory doing what we would call like a selfie pose at this point, but he's doing it with an old camera, so it's just called, talking to the camera and trying not to break it. Cory's doing a little deep dive on the brain. Cory is, going an interview with his sister and parents and wondering how come the youngest sister gets to do all these things and have a necklace on her neck and going to a party when Cory is grounded. And Alan makes it pretty clear that Cory should be grounded because he's calling Canadians to hear them speak Canadian.
Now, I did get a little bit of Cory's little report here. Would you like to hear it?
Ooh, yes, please. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Excuse me, ma'am. Did you say new dress? And is the baby of the family wearing a gold necklace?
My mommy gave it to me.
Lent it to you? Party, necklace, new dress, all for your daughter. Yet just last night, your son was imprisoned in his room, forbidden to go to the movies with his best friends.
Our daughter didn't dial random numbers in Saskatchewan just to hear people talk Canadian.
Say goodbye to your poor, exploited brother, sweetie.
Bye. Sorry, everybody hates you.
Finally, the naked truth emerges.
Hey, Cory, do me a favor. No phone calls, no home shopping network, and be careful with my video camera. Have fun.
Random numbers in Canada or Saskatchewan to hear people talk Canadian. I love it. Bye. Sorry, everybody hates you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but is Saskatchewan a part of the more French-speaking in Canada, or is it just a general area in Canada, thus they're saying things like "eh," and that's all Cory wants to hear?
Honestly, I think it's just the most interesting sounding province, and that's why the writers went with it.
Probably. If anyone knows more about Saskatchewan, please let us know. We'd love to know more about it. I did not have time to deep dive Saskatchewan. I'm sorry.
Have you ever been to Canada, Tyler?
I have not, no. I need to work on getting a passport because I keep getting told that Niagara Falls is best on the Canadian side.
It is much better on the Canadian side, yes.
Right. So I need to make that happen. Maybe there'll be a new Patreon level. Get Tyler to Canada.
All right. So does Cory take care of Alan's camera?
Of course not.
He's an 11-year-old boy.
Almost immediately. Which does... I wanted to talk about this real quick, if you don't mind. The big, giant 90s cameras. What memories do you have of these cameras, Brett?
I have some interesting memories of them. My family never really had one, but I knew enough people in our orbit that did. And these things were pretty sizable, pretty hefty. I'm not sure in 93 if they had moved far enough along to VHS-C, where it was smaller, a little more manageable. But the VHS cameras were pretty unwieldy, and for Cory to be running around using this the way he was, his arms as an 11-year-old would have been stretched way out in front of him. These things weighed like 10, 15 pounds once you got everything in them.
Wait, can you do that again for me?
Way out here.
Thank you.
And yeah, if you've never worked with a VHS tape, you should. They're fun every now and then. But if they had moved to VHS-C by this point, I don't remember them being that commonplace at this point. They're a little more manageable, but definitely not as convenient as everyone's cell phones these days.
Oh yeah, I feel so bad how easy it is to record things because literally for me to record, like if we're at a function for my son, say his soccer game, all I have to do is slip it out of my pocket, hold it up, let the phone know that it's my face, and then swipe once, hit a button, and now I'm recording. I can move it, and then the angle changes. I can, zoom in. It's all real easy, and it comes out looking pretty good.
Yeah.
I firmly remember my father lugging this camera to concerts and different events, just to record something. I remember when our elementary school used to do a concert and it was required that you had to be there, and just looking in the back row and seeing all of the dads standing there with their giant cameras and the giant tripods they had. And I very much have memories of my dad setting the camera up in a spot in the living room and being very clear of, do not touch your presents until dad has the camera set up. We do not do anything until the camera is ready.
Oh, yes.
So I feel so bad, to all the 90s dads out there that had to lug these things around and endure it, and especially to my father, I do apologize. We clearly did not appreciate the amount of effort that you had to put in.
Yeah, indeed. Our hats are off to you. Salute.
Now let's talk about how you did everything wrong. Yeah, so Cory isn't very careful with the camera, and he definitely drops it. At least that's what they make it seem.
Oh, no, it was dropped.
I mean, but I'll say, those suckers used to be built and to take damage, and I'm pretty sure those things have fallen multiple times and still be fine. The tape may be a little damaged, but the unit itself was always pretty solid.
Yeah, the tape probably was fine, but that lens might have been cracked.
Could be. I do remember life getting easier once the smaller tape the smaller tape video recorders came out. I do remember things getting simpler, but boy, those years with the giant case and lugging that all over the place. No wonder our fathers used to be much more manlier than us.
Yeah, I gotta carry that thing around just to capture 2 minutes of you at a band concert,
Yeah. So, anywho, we go through the title, which everyone knows how we feel about the title so far. So the less we talk about that, the better. Yes, thank you. So cute. So we have Cory and Minkus in the front area. They both have hats on. Minkus is clearly King George, and Cory is George Washington. Mm-hmm. And they're talking about the American Revolutionary War. And Cory at one point makes a joke about how are all boring guys in history named George?
Was every boring guy in history named George?
Yep, that.
And I really like the idea of Cory's 6th grade concept of Americans being independent from England.
We're American. We're independent. We'll get our goods from Japan.
Mm-hmm. I had that written down too. There once was a time when we didn't get everything from China. That's what I'm learning.
Yeah. Hey, Sony was big at this point, man.
Oh, yeah. So Cory is making the argument that, you know what, we're studying history, and who cares about history? It's all these dead old people. Who cares?
Because remember, history never changes.
Right. History never changes. even though we just learned in a previous episode that, no, it doesn't, but we had work on it, yada, yada.
And if we don't pay attention to it, yeah.
Oh, and before I forget, we have another episode where Topanga is back.
Yes, we do. And she'll get a little bit of a meteor appearance this week.
Which Cory walks right into a new assignment from Feeney. And I love that Shawn's like, I smell an assignment.
Yes.
And Cory says, I swear I didn't see it coming.
I love that.
But anywho, yeah, Feeney has decided that he wants them to do a pre-union where they are going to graduate in 2000, and then they're coming back for their 20th class reunion in 2020. And of course, fun fact, for the class of 2000, they would have missed their reunion because of COVID.
That's right. They would have been zooming in.
Yes, I missed my 2010 reunion because of that reason as well, so which was quite sad. But yeah, they're kind of just getting clarification, and Minkus makes it clear that he kind of has the hots for Topanga.
Topanga.
Yes.
Topanga.
And I will say, I didn't think about this before, but I'm thinking about it right now. This does kind of lead into with Farkle later on of clearly being very interested in the two girls, and the confidence of Minkus right now of just being like, I've seen my future and it's you, babe.
Oh, yes. He is quite sure of himself. He is overflowing with sureness of himself.
Well, and again, we've established and we've talked about the fact that Topanga clearly has a history of liking Cory. That, she has an interest in him. He doesn't realize that she has an interest in him, but Minkus probably is very much aware and knows of that interest, and thus could be a reason why he goes after Cory sometimes, because she does have the interest of him.
Very well could be. Little buried rivalry there.
Yeah, maybe. Again, just thought about it, out of nowhere. Then we go to the lunchroom where Shawn, Cory, and Larry. Who's Larry?
Well, he's back. We've seen him before. This is actually his final appearance. We will never see Larry again.
We have Larry here, and we could argue he's the final death chair friend, because in previous iterations of him being there, he's been named and he's had lines, but he hasn't sat in the chair yet.
Yeah, in last week's episode, he was credited merely as costume kid or student 1 or 3. Yeah, this is only his second time with a name, and yeah, we'll never see him again. This is the end of Larry. The death chair has got him as this episode. Actually, later on, the death chair will truly get him.
We have Larry, Cory, and Shawn discussing what they want to be in the future. Shawn makes it very clear that, hey, my dad's a tire salesman, and I have other people that are tire salesmen, so why not? I might as well be that. And now we hear of what potential job Shawn's dad has. And, maybe there's a potential that he's kind of like a traveling salesman of some sort,
Very possible, because we still don't know much about Shawn beyond he has a sister. He does have, at least at this point, both parents at home. He has a backyard that the boys can play football in, and now we know his dad's a tire salesman.
Yep.
That's pretty much all we know about Shawn in his home life.
But, someone who is good at sales, they could have a good life right now. So, and I know in the future we're going to meet Chet Hunter. So we're kind of going based on the fact of how he acts and his portrayal. And, you could probably see that he has been successful at points. And so he's probably either super successful at points, but then really lazy and doesn't do well at all. So, but that's more for next season, really.
Of course.
Larry makes it clear that he is interested in going as Feeney because, most sincerest form of butt kissing is oh my gosh. Most sincerest form of flattery is all that.
Flattery,
you know what I'm trying to say.
Flattery, form of butt kissing. There we go.
Flattery. Yes, that's the word. Can you tell that we have been sick the last couple of days? Oh gosh, this is gonna be rough. Yeah. Anywho, Larry is going to be Feeney. That's all he has his mind on. It's basically his goal is to dress like Feeney and to act like him, and that's all he's going to do. But Cory declares that he knows exactly what he's going to be. He's going to be the center fielder for the Philadelphia Phillies.
Oh, yes. As every 11-year-old boy wants to be. Yeah, it's honestly, it's a lot of good, solid imagination and dreaming for Cory, and it's good to see that at 6th grade he still has that type of an open mind for dreaming.
But I love that Shawn immediately laughs and says, "You had 31 errors in Little League last year." Now, I'll just go ahead and call myself out real quick. When I was Cory's age, if you were to say to me, "What would you want to be?" I could have gotten away with saying, I want to be a baseball player because I love baseball. However, if anyone was going to make an error on the field, it was going to be me. When I was 12, I played second base, and after the first game, I lost all confidence, and there were many moments of ball going right through my legs and being like, well, I suck. So, again, I want to apologize, and I know you needed a better second baseman. I'm sorry. But anywho, I thought this was kind of interesting. Cory goes, "Are we men or are we boys?" And they say, "We're men." And then they start barking.
I'm thinking this was probably a little bit of a tie-in with Home Improvement, just kind of a reference to the whole Tim Allen psyche there.
Yeah, it was just weird.
If I remember correctly, Home Improvement, Tim Allen, at least his stand-up was in the zeitgeist at the time. And if memory serves, Home Improvement had been on the air.
Yeah, I think that had already at least been a season or two in.
Yeah, Home Improvement had already been on the air for 2 seasons, and that's another ABC show, so that's likely just another shout out.
Isn't it weird when they you just see little things in an episode, especially like as we're going through the first season of like, why did they do that? And they're always so small little things. You're like, that's not the identity of the show. But as we progress, we learn what the identity is, Yeah. But we're going through the awkward phases.
Side note, Home Improvement, another big part of my growing up. So another one I like to look back on and see things that I learned about being a dad from.
Stay tuned for our next podcast, Dads Meet.
Yeah.
Anywho, we go back to the Matthews living room where Amy is helping Cory put together his choreos. And she gives him a picture for him to go ahead and part with to put on the box. And she makes a comment about when you're at your 20th reunion, I'll be 44.
Clearly fudging some numbers.
So I did something a little mean. And I asked my wife, I said, hey, would this be mean if I were to do this? And she said, yes. And I thought, I'm going to do it anyway.
All right, Sarah, if you're listening, it's been recorded. Tyler admits he was warned. Go ahead.
Yes, I was told not to, and I'm doing it anyway. But in the interest of fairness, I did it to myself as well. So it feels like it's a little more meaner because, you're a little older than me. So I'm sorry. I made a guess because I didn't actually officially know when you were born. Mm-hmm. But to my knowledge and understanding, you are 40 right now, correct?
Close enough, yes.
Or about to be 40.
Yes.
Okay, I got confused on when your actual birthday was. I was like, I'm trying to remember. I didn't have time to fully go into all of it. But anywho, roughly, when your first child graduates, you'll be 42.
Yep.
And thus, at reunion for said child, you will be 63.
Mm-hmm.
And again, for the next, at reunion, 65. And at the next reunion, 70.
Mm-hmm.
So, not bad. Hey, I've met a couple of 70 really spry people, so 70's the new 60.
Yeah.
And by the time maybe you're 70, it'll be the new 50. Who knows?
Or it might be the new 90. Who knows?
That's also true.
I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. So, for me, when my first born graduates, I will be 42 as well.
That's a shock.
But for his when his next reunion is, I'll be 62. For my second child, I'll be 69. No, sorry. For my second child, I'll be 67. And for the third one, I'll be 69. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So, roughly, I'll be the same level of age when my children hit there too. So
yes. By the time you get to that point, it's really you just kind of stop counting.
I overreacted.
To quote my grandma, I'm too old to care what people say.
Exactly. You hit that age and you just don't care.
Yeah. But anywho, something that Amy does care about is Morgan walks in with a plastic necklace.
Oh, yes.
Clearly not the golden necklace that she lent to her.
Probably the same one in Cory's video expose.
Oh, yes. But when she asks, hey, where is the necklace? She goes, I traded it. This one's pretty. To which Amy says, well, I have to call her mom and get this back. She says, well, we said black, no trades back.
And I have heard many and been part of many no trades amongst kids. Outside of this episode, I've never heard the black, no trades backs.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I made trades with kids with toys, and then we forgot that we traded them, thus never got them back.
Yeah. I've been involved with ones where we declared no backsies, or
right.
other ways, but just that whole declaration of black, no trades back. That expression is one that outside of this episode I've never heard of, and I don't know if that's a Philly thing, I don't know if that's a West Coast thing, or just the fact that I grew up in the Midwest, and we're about 20 years behind everyone else.
I mean, I just think that it's probably one of those things they maybe wanted to see if this would catch on,
Very possible.
And just be a catchphrase or something. Who knows? But anywho, a question that I have as a parent, when you lend something to your child for something specific, don't you take that thing away as soon as humanly possible?
Oh, I would. You get back from the party, that necklace comes back to my jewelry box, not the next day.
Right, exactly. That's why I'm like, okay, this is a failure on Amy and Alan, unless
totally.
they just weren't paying attention, or I don't know, it could be one of those deals where because she's worn it, that Amy's like, sure, you may wear it around the house, if you want to feel pretty, but she could have stashed it, took it to school, handed it to the friend. Any of those things could be possible.
It's also likely when they came home from the party, she had already had her coat on, fell asleep on the way home. They just dropped her on the bed. But still, yes, it is on Amy to not have made sure she had her necklace back.
But hey, I'm sure Amy had a lot going on, so we can't be mad at her for too long.
Well, she's helping Cory make his cereal and his baseball card, which, by the way, kudos to Amy as a mom helping her sixth grader put all this stuff together for his presentation.
Okay, are we ready to get into the pre-union stuff?
Oh, yes. I got to say, Minkus scares me.
Yeah. So I have stuff on baseball player, president, Microsoft CEO, and mechanic.
Okay.
I didn't even waste time on the whole teacher thing because Larry didn't put any effort into it. Why should I put effort into deep diving his stuff?
Oh, yeah.
I already did a deep dive on that anyway. If you want to know more about how teachers are underpaid, please listen to the last episode.
Oh, yeah. You know what, let's just get Larry out of the way right here.
Oh, how flattering. You're following in my footsteps. And look, you've dressed just like me. Come over here, you little suck-up. Every year, someone tries to avoid the assignment with this transparent little ruse.
Oh, I didn't mean to be ruse.
Can you tell me the meaning of the word tenure?
I can look it up.
Can you define curriculum?
I can look it up.
Just as I thought. You're no teacher. You're nothing more than a poseur. Go look it up.
Go look it up.
Yeah, I will tell you that poser from Urban Dictionary is to pretend to be somebody you're not, to be part of a culture or genre just to fit in.
Yes. And I'm thinking with Mr. Feeney being as posh as he is, he probably used a more elegant spelling. So I'm sure the meaning's the same, but it probably has some more snooty upper crust bite to it.
You know, the way I spelled poser and the way that it's spelled with the captions is completely different.
Poseur?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. That's the difference there.
Yeah.
And this is where Larry, the desk chair has gotten Larry. That is the last we will ever see. That is a series wrap on Larry. He's dead.
Thank you, Larry, for your service.
That's right.
I mean, I will say that Larry's been a part of several important moments, for the show. So it almost feels like Larry could have worked out, but just for whatever reason, the writers didn't like it, or Michael Jacobs didn't.
Yeah, that's probably more Michael Jacobs, since they were finding so much chemistry between Shawn and Cory.
So, between the four careers, which would you like to hear first?
People. Am I the only one who read the summer reading list?
Let's start with Shawn and the mechanic.
Okay, so, Shawn.
Since Shawn will be fat because his dad's fat.
Okay, I didn't look up about will he be fat or not. This is what's interesting. Of the careers, Shawn is the one who, A, is most likely to get said job, stay in said job, and B, it is a more practical future for him and also a need for the community. As a tire salesman, as I was looking up on Indeed, at a starting potential rate is like $16 just for like a tire specialist. If he has experience and skills, it's not his first job, he could easily, within a few years, work to about $20, especially with enough experience. There are some places in Philadelphia right now that are listed for $20 to $25, depending upon experience. Unfortunately, no longer do we just have like a muffler specialist, so that's no longer a thing. However, if he became a straight up mechanic, depending upon, again, the garage he's at and how much experience he has, he could hit $20 to $30 an hour, which is not going to be a bad living for him. All of it just depends on the experience he has and how well he works.
Yep.
Mechanic is a field where, depending upon how many is in the area and also how good you can do your job, you can make decent money doing that. It's not perfect, like in some smaller communities, it may not be the most high paying, especially because so many people know how to fix stuff.
Yeah, in a really small community, you're kind of screwed.
Right, exactly. That's why I want to make sure it's clear. The numbers I was looking at were from Philadelphia. So yeah, I think that the most likely and most potential employment is for Shawn, especially if he goes in the route of becoming a full-blown mechanic. But even if he stays in the tire realm and oil change and whatnot, he could still make halfway decent money and could even potentially work to being a person that either runs it as like a manager or even an owner. All things are possible.
If he goes in the same garage his dad's based out of, a little nepotism could go a long way.
Right, exactly. There's a lot of potential here for Shawn. Do I think he could also get fat? Probably, but I'm not too worried about that part.
Yeah.
Now, let's go to president. This one's fun. Instead of doing a deep dive into presidency, all that jazz, what I did was simplify things because the only time period where it could make sense for the world that Topanga is describing is if somehow the feminist movement really gets moving and she runs in 2012 and wins as a, third party candidate. Now, as we all know, politics is the worst thing ever and nobody likes it. Thus, is it possible for someone to do that? Who's to say? This is a made-up universe. On top of the made-up universe we're discussing.
Anything exists in this universe within a universe.
Right.
Topanga.
But just so you know, the base salary for the president is $200,000. The United States in 2012 was spending about $676 billion in defense spending. Topanga makes it clear that she has gotten rid of basically all military and nuclear weapons. So somehow she has convinced not only America to get rid of defense spending, essentially, and also other countries on top of that. So we're looking at a all-around feminist movement throughout the whole world that, we're able to get rid of in fear of war. Men are basically there for breeding, is what she said. And so the other assumption that I went into this is that because we don't have to worry about defense spending or anything like that, we got about $6 trillion in debt at this time. My assumption is that because we're not going to have war, I think all debts are forgiven.
Very, very likely.
Let's just assume for a moment that our country's getting a whole bunch of cash flowing right into us. And so I asked a couple of lovely ladies, hey, if you were president and could do whatever you want, what would you do? And this is what they said. By the way, for the record, the lovely ladies I'm referring to is my wife and your wife. And when I talked to your wife about it, I said, don't tell him I want to surprise him.
I was about to say, she didn't tell me that she was polled for this episode.
So, in combining the things they talk about, we have about 9 things that's going to happen.
Oh, okay.
With a female president, only taken from the minds of our wives. So the first thing is that all men are going to be kicked out of the government. No men whatsoever. The next thing is that there's going to be term limits. No more people being in government for their whole life. And,
Highly support.
Yes, no more career politicians. The next thing is that they're going to improve and make the best healthcare / maternity care system because, those suck in our countries.
Yeah.
Sorry for the bad word. Don't say that word, son. But yeah, it's garbage. So they're going to improve that. The next thing they want to improve is schools and make sure that kids are learning the way they're supposed to be. New and better homeless care programs and making sure that people are, not homeless anymore. Probably getting people into buildings that, go empty and whatnot. Next thing is a food program, making sure that all the food is good and making sure people are able to eat. Because again, this goes kind of hand in hand with the homeless care. Big thing is IDD funding. For those that don't know, IDD is short for intellectual and developmental disabilities. And so my wife works with that demographic. And so she has a big heart for them. And so she wants to make sure that funding is better for them and that they have better lives. Foster care reform, making sure that all children are able to get adopted. Luckily, in the world that Topanga is set up, all the boys are taken care of by other men because they're all underground. Besides breeding purposes.
Oh, yes.
And lastly, and this is a big thing, we talked about Jubilee and having a time period where, after so long, we go, okay, if you have debts right now, you are forgiven. You're getting a new start, new opportunities, go forth. If you get into debt again, hey, that's kind of on you, but we're going to give you a chance. Now, again, as men, we're not going to be able to live in this utopia because we're just there for breeding purposes only. And
now, were they privy? Were these wonderful ladies privy to the fact that you and I are merely underground breeding stock?
I mean, they've both seen the episode, so I hope they understand this.
Well, I guarantee you that my wife is not fully remembering what President Topanga's plan was.
Good chance. I mean,
not saying she would argue with it, but
I mean, we would just be referred to of Kelly and of Sarah.
Oh, it is.
All right. So do you want to hear about the center fielder for the Phillies, or do you want to hear about the new Microsoft CEO?
Well, let's hear about the Microsoft CEO, but first I want to hear his thoughts on President Topanga.
We're married. Your breeding stock. I'll take it.
On the one hand, that is downright hilarious. On the other hand, it really worries me that as a sixth grader, he's already got that mindset. But let's hear about Minkus's future as the future CEO of Minecraft? Microsoft.
All right. I'm not going to say that having a podcast is hard, but the amount of time and brain power I put into this is dumb. So,
oh, wow. Yeah.
Where do I even start? First of all, I want to make it clear that for Minkus to actually purchase Microsoft, as we understood it, say in 2010, is not possible. Like, Microsoft became way too big. It was no longer just about making the software for computers. It became its own entity. Right now, it sits with assets of over $1 trillion. It has more revenue streams than some countries. So understand that Minkus could never possibly understand what Microsoft is by the time he could try to buy it. Mm-hmm. But let's just say we live in a magical world where it's possible. And we're going mostly based on the understanding of what Microsoft was.
Oh, yes. Because at this point, 1993, it's still largely an operating system that's predominantly used by the bulk of the world that uses computers.
So, a couple of things we have to establish in order for this to be a possibility. A, Minkus's father would have had to invest in Microsoft when they first went public. So this is arguing that before Minkus was really a person, his father bought like 1 million shares of Microsoft on the day that it first launched at $21 a share. Now that's no small amount. But again, we're just saying that's what would have had to be. Mm-hmm. And I have the exact number. It was March 13th, 1986 is when they went public. And they had about 2.5 million shares that got sold on that day. It's a lot of money. I currently don't see the exact number from that, but it's a lot.
Minkus would have been 5 at that point, roughly. And we already have established that Minkus's family is probably well off. So
yes,
it is feasible that his parents do own stock in Microsoft, which would make sense as to how Minkus is so aware of some of the inner workings of a hostile takeover.
Right. So, and that's the thing is I went with, okay, what if Minkus himself was buying the stock, but by the time that he would start, the value was not going to be able to generate enough, even if he was loaded. Like Minkus, after graduation, could not get enough stock within the 10 years that was going to require him having enough already to be able just to take it over.
This would have been a fun one to see Mr. Feeney take him down a few pegs.
Yeah.
Just because of the grand reach. But go on.
I will get there. Now, big if Minkus's father actually did that, and all he did was buy like $1 million of shares, at this point today, or at least the other day whenever I did the math, the value of those stocks alone are about $288 billion. That's a lot of money.
Minkus Sr. is loaded.
Yes, but again, that's at a $1.68 trillion amount. The next thing he would have had to have done after graduating high school, at some point within that 5-year time period, there was a little website that popped up in 1997 that we all are aware of, but mostly because it's a joke. And do you want to know what that little website's called?
Oh, please tell.
It's Ask Jeeves. Now, here's the thing. Ask Jeeves is still around as Ask.com. Mm-hmm. And in the early 2000s, they kept buying out other search engines to improve their search engine, but the problem is that they just could not compete with Google. So Google is this giant conglomerate that will not be taken down, and it's even a verb of me going, oh yeah, I Googled this thing, this is how I know. So let's say in this hypothetical world, Minkus either acquires via money or just becomes the CEO of Ask.com or Ask Jeeves at the time, and renames it AskMinkus.com. And he redoes the whole website, makes it more usable. And in fact, who even heard of Google? You know, everybody knows, hey, you got to ask Minkus. Minkus has all the answers.
That's not a bad business idea.
Right. And the key here is he makes it clear that it's a leverage buyout of Microsoft, which means he only needed 10% of actual cash, and the rest of it would be a loan. Now, I'm not going to get into would a bank give out this loan. We're just going to say he finds one because there's banks that give rich people money all the time, because who cares? In 1993, the value of Microsoft was about $3.75 billion. In 2010, it's $234.52 billion. So, with all that said, all Minkus would need is about 23.452 billion to start a buyout of Microsoft in 2010. Now, I could not get an exact figure on that original investment of would that be enough, translated. But, you could argue with the original investment of the Microsoft, of whatever amount he would have even at that time, by the time he could, say in 2010, attempt to make this buyout happen, arguably, it's possible, even in the real world aspects, if Bill Gates was willing to, he could have bought Microsoft. But again, he would have needed a handout from his dad. He would have had to have bought or just be running Ask Minkus. And also, very clear, he says, I then became the number one software provider in the world. So he also would have had to have some sort of a software company that he already started and working on, even if it was on the back burner. Thus, whatever market share he had already, he then could have combined those two to be the number one software. Now, Microsoft is already the number one software provider in the world, but this is an argument from 93 when Minkus probably thought he could build a better software than Bill Gates.
Oh, I'm sure he thought that.
Yes. So now, I'm sorry. I didn't say before with Topanga that it's not really reasonable of what she did. I don't think that could happen. But Minkus even more, I don't think he deserves an A. Because in a real world practicality, he couldn't have done this. Now, I know that Feeney couldn't have predicted what Microsoft would become and what was going to happen with like the .com bubble and all that stuff. But I don't think he deserved an A.
I don't think so either.
I really do think this is one of those times where Cory is right of just he gets preferential treatment.
Definitely.
Because he made up a couple of documents. Feeney didn't even look at them and said, you get an A.
Yeah, he didn't even open any of those records that Minkus handed him. They could have just been blank paper for all he knew.
Now, if the goal of the assignment is just see how much time they spend on this assignment, that's different. But, of course Minkus is going to turn in something like that. But good Lord, it's not possible for him to become Microsoft's CEO. Bill Gates only owns 1% of Microsoft right now and still is ranking in billions of dollars. So now let's move on to Cory, the baseball player, and my other giant annoyance.
Okay.
And also something else I spent way too much time on. Okay. Let's talk minor leagues for a second. So those of you that don't know, minor leagues are the baseball leagues in which people play in to work up to be in the major leagues. Cory claims that he played in 11th grade, but was so good he got signed to a team. Granted, I don't think that the Major League Baseball does that anymore. Did they in 93? Who's to say? But this is Cory's world. Cory's made up world. So let's just say, argument's sake, Cory starts his baseball career in 2002. Because with him getting in there a little earlier, I think they need time for him to mature and grow and whatnot. The baseball's not the problem. It's the maturity level, But the Phillies believe in him. He's a hometown kid. Everybody loves him. Everybody can't wait for him to start playing. So I've compared him to 3 different baseball players. At the time when the Philadelphia Phillies won the World Series, they won it twice. First time was in 2007. I can't remember when the other time was, but it was pretty quickly after that too. The center fielder at that time was Shane Victorino. Maybe you guys know that name. Maybe some of you don't. He started playing in the major leagues in 2005. He played for 12 years. He had a career earning of $65.5 million. He had a batting average of .275. Not bad. Over 108 home runs, 2 World Series, 4 Gold Gloves, 2 All-Star appearances. This player, Shane Victorino, made a lot of money, made good money, but he still didn't play every single year with the Phillies. He got traded a couple of times and moved around. He only had 8 seasons with the Phillies. Now another former Philly, Marlon Byrd. He bounced around between, Philly, Pittsburgh, Cleveland. He's a guy who's been around for a long time. He started his career in 2002, which is why we're talking about him. He played for 14 years on 10 different teams with a career earnings of $47.6 million and 2.75 again for batting average, over 159 home runs. The key to these 2 players is simple. They had long careers. They made money. They were important to their teams, but were tradable. They were gotten rid of. Cory claims that he is a legend. And he is so important to Philadelphia. He's probably more important than Rocky at this point. That's how important he is. So the player I'm going to compare him to next is Derek Jeter. Played for the Yankees for over 20 years. Started in 1995. Derek Jeter kind of made, not great money for the first couple seasons. He was an all-star, though, in his first 2 seasons. For his first big contract, he made $10 million for 1 season. And then from 2001 to 2010, every year he made about $18.9 million. That's not including signing bonuses and all that jazz. The reason I bring him up is because this is in the same time period of when Cory would quote unquote be becoming a legend in Philly, and with 1 contract in the market, he's already making more money than Cory. As we listened to the episode previously where we talked about comparing Barry Bonds' contract to Mr. Feeney as a teacher, that is what a 90s kid could think is, hey, Barry Bonds makes this money, this will be good enough for me too. $6 million hurts, doesn't it? Again, I compare the 2 of them because of the fact that Derek Jeter is a very well-known person. People just know him as Jeter. He is as synonymous with the Yankees as any of the very old players like Babe Ruth. But essentially my point is that Derek Jeter is a big deal from that team's perspective, and they paid him a lot of money and they kept him around. They bring up the Corios. Fun fact, most often with these deals for cereal boxes, they don't actually make a lot of money unless, again, you have a giant name. So there was a giant name in the 90s called Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was able to get a $400,000 cereal deal. Ken Griffey Jr., however, big time name in the 90s, had a $1 million contract. So there is money to be made, but it's not always guaranteed. It depends on how you negotiate. It depends upon the type of agent you have. Those are the 2 first that made really big money out of it, and they each used the other to be able to get more money. And that's the thing that I think Cory is not taking into account, is that agents use other contracts to just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And we also went through the steroid period where people were hitting home runs all over the place. People were making money. Last thing I'm going to say about this is that in 2002, the top 25 contracts were between $25.2 million and $14 million. Again, that top player with the top contract was Alex Rodriguez. Again, another giant name. Is it possible for Cory to be this legend just making $6 million a year? Feeney was very clear on, no, you cannot. You didn't think this through. And Feeney is right. Do I think Cory should have gotten incomplete? Maybe not. But Is his scenario more plausible than Minkus's? Yes. So I think Cory's getting the shaft. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, Your Honor. We get through all of the presentations that we're going to see of the important characters. Shawn doesn't even...
Yeah, we don't see Shawn's presentation.
No, but he's the best friend. Honestly, I'm hoping that Feeney at least gave him like a C+.
I'm going to assume Feeney gave him at least a C because it's very realistic. Shawn knows exactly what he's going to do, exactly what... Feeney will probably be disappointed in his motivation and his self-starting, but I'm assuming Feeney's going to give him the credit for it because he did the work he needed to because he knows what his dad does.
Right. I think if he can show that he thought about like how much money he may make and what type of training he needs, it's possible he could get maybe like a B- or something. Who knows? Because sometimes Feeney is fair with Shawn.
Oh, yes. And remember, he's brought up in a couple of former episodes to Cory that he does essentially grade on a curve where he will take into account a student's particular skill set and effort level that they put into a particular assignment.
So yeah, Cory says that Mr. Feeney is dragging him down and he's taking away his future.
And I got Cory and Feeney's interaction here for us.
How does it feel to be in the presence of a legend?
Well, legends are not born overnight. You must have been playing for quite a while.
Oh, ever since the 11th grade.
You didn't graduate high school.
High school's kind of a joke when you're pulling down $6 million a year.
$6 million.
Hurts, doesn't it?
Well, adjusted for inflation, that's a paltry sum compared to even the average ball player's salary today.
But I've got investments.
Such as?
Investments, buildings. Buildings with floors and people in them doing stuff. I'm diversified.
And do you handle these investments yourself?
No, my guys do that stuff.
Oh, you've got guys?
Lots of guys. They're in my buildings.
Mm-hmm. And what percentage of your salary do they charge for their services?
Mr. Feeney, you're dragging me down. Can't we discuss, like, my batting average?
You're floundering, Mr. Matthews.
No, I thought this through. Look, I even made out my own baseball card.
Yet you have no clue as to how your affairs will be managed, no education to help you get a clue, and no marketable skills after your ball-playing days are over.
But I've got guys.
Well, Mr. Matthews, you've made an attempt at this assignment. You just didn't think it all the way through. And until you do, I'm going to give you an incomplete.
An incomplete?
Mm-hmm.
That's an I. That's lower than an F. That's down there by M. You can't do this.
Why not?
Because it's not like you're giving me an incomplete on some dinky quiz. You threw me out before I even got to first base. You took away my future.
Now, I did find it interesting because Shawn talks about I smell an assignment, and Cory didn't see it coming at the beginning of the episode. But when Feeney interacts with Larry, he brings up the fact that every year some little punk does this suck-up routine. So clearly this is an exercise Mr. Feeney does every year with his classes. Right. I find that interesting that he's... And in this interaction with Cory, I kind of see that veneer slipping a little bit where he's just... we've already heard in a previous episode where too many years of teaching sixth graders has bled me drive my humanity. And I think we kind of see a little bit of that here where he's just... I feel like he's just letting all that slip through, and he is honestly being a little too hard on Cory. Yes, Cory did not think through all of those other aspects, but I don't know that he really put those parameters in place, at least that we saw. I mean, not everyone is going to think through like Minkus and Topanga did.
But again, though, the problem is that Cory was only thinking in the realm of baseball. Mm-hmm. Let's go back to Derek Jeter for a second. If you Google right now Derek Jeter, it doesn't pop up baseball player. It pops up as businessman. Alex Rodriguez, one of the top paid baseball players ever. He makes appearances on Shark Tank. He makes appearances on The View. So he's not just a baseball player. And I think the thing that frustrates Feeney is all he's seeing is that all he's thought about is the short term of being a famous quote-unquote baseball player, not thinking about the fact that when baseball's done, what then? And I think that's the part that frustrates, because I think Feeney knows that he's smart enough that he could have thought about it, but all he spent his time on was baseball.
I think what really might have set him off is the fact that he didn't even finish high school.
Yeah.
He lets
think so,
Mr.
too.
Feeney know that he dropped out in 11th grade.
Right. And I mean, that would be frustrating for him.
Yeah.
You know, he's putting so much time and energy into him. He's doing special assignments just for him. And it could feel like to Feeney that Cory is metaphorically slapping him in the face. That all his hard work to help him understand what education is going nowhere.
And yet he still extends grace by giving him an incomplete, not a failing grade, and an offer to do the work to complete the assignment.
Right. Well, and I think you could argue that he gives him probably at the end either a C+ or B-. I think he eventually, because he does, think through it. He's not giving him an A.
Oh, no.
A's are just for Minkus.
Exactly.
And Topanga.
Minkus and Topanga, that's it. Because he's breeding stock and he likes it.
So Cory is back in his room and he's taken down a Jim Abbott poster. Who's Jim Abbott? Stay tuned. But Eric's, trying to say jokes and, trying to get Cory to loosen up a little bit. And Alan walks in and he's like, "Hey, time for dinner." Eric's like, "Well, great. I want to get away from Buzzkill."
And I have Alan and Cory here on the line, so let's hear what they have to say.
Your mom told me about the assignment.
It wasn't just an assignment, Dad. It was my future. I got an incomplete. I have an incomplete future.
Well, of course you have an incomplete future. The future's always incomplete. When it's complete, people tend to call it the past.
Mine was supposed to be all planned out.
I thought you wanted to be a baseball player.
I do, but that's not enough for Feeney the Dream Crusher.
I don't care what George Feeney says. You can do anything you put your mind to, Cory. Anything.
Maybe I'll give these to Morgan and she can color in Jim Abbott's uniform. Dad, when you were a kid, did someone tell you that you'd never make it to being the manager of a supermarket?
Well, that wasn't exactly what I dreamed of being.
It's not? But it's such a cool job.
I wanted to build bridges. Big ones, like the Ben Franklin.
Then how come you gave that up?
I don't know. Sometimes as you get older, your dreams change. After a while, I dreamed of having a wife and a family, and that came true. You know what I dream of being now?
What?
I dream of being the father of a Phillies center fielder.
Dad, there's another dream you can kiss goodbye.
Hey, not so fast. I don't give up that easy. I still think my kid's gonna play in the majors.
I used to dream like that, Dad, but now I know that sooner or later every dream comes to an end and you gotta wake up.
Cory's, he's really depressed, man. He needs some uppers.
But, well, I don't think that what Alan is doing is wrong. I think he just thinks, hey, if I keep repeating it, keep telling him, hey, I believe in your dream, that he's going to be like, you know what, Dad, you're right. But I think Alan may just realize that he is fighting an uphill battle now, and this is something that Cory has to work through.
Yeah, and I like how Alan kind of gives a little backstory on what his dreams were growing up and how they changed for him. And even though he's holding on to the dream that his son, Cory, is going to be the center fielder for the Phillies, he kind of gives him that nod that it's okay if dreams change, because they do for a lot of people. They did for me.
So then we go into probably the worst part of this whole episode from my vantage point, and that is we have Jane, the friend.
Oh, yes.
And Stephanie, Jane's mom,
yes,
walk through the door.
Yes,
and
yes.
let's just say the friend is Stephanie and Jane is the mom. But they walk in and Jane is a monster.
Yeah, I
like
yeah.
Back to the lady who was there to do the test. Like, it doesn't even seem like a real human being level of monster.
Yeah, this is the. I do have a little bit.
Do you have
on
any sound
Jane.
clips from this?
I don't have any sound clips. No, I do have some
Okay.
of Jane's actress, played by Christine Healy. 62 acting credits, a lot of one-shot guest appearances. Nothing that seemed to really stick that that was jumped out at me. The most interesting thing to me was she had a role in the 1991 TV movie Knight Rider 2000, in which William Daniels, any fans of the 80s TV series knows, William Daniels was the voice of Kit the car, and he was the voice of Kit in Knight Rider 2000. He just was uncredited. So,
interesting.
Jane was in a movie with Mr. Feeney in 1991, 2 years before this episode. They just didn't share screen time.
Yes.
Oh, but yeah, she's. I couldn't bring myself to clip any of this. It was just so shrill.
Thank goodness. Thank you. I'm gonna just leave this scene with Amy is such a smart lady, and I love her and adore her.
Oh, she did.
And
she handled this perfectly. She and Morgan were gold.
Right. Right. It literally was, you can just sense of, she trained Morgan exactly what to do to one up Jane. And the whole reason for them coming over is just to throw as much shade at her as possible.
Oh, yeah.
And Amy is a queen. Let's just be real.
Oh, yes. Amy is the mom that in this moment we all want to have.
Yes. So the next scene we get to is Eric's on the phone, and he's trying to explain what happened with him and another girl.
I'm telling you, she was doing the kissing. I was like an innocent bystander.
He just had a girlfriend in the last episode again.
I love when Cory hangs the phone up on him and he goes, call her back. He's just like, I don't even know who that was. What is this?
Oh, man. Who's calling Eric that he doesn't even know?
Right. Well, okay. So I will say, there's always the potential that one of the girls that he was interested in before, whether it be Heather or Linda or whoever, was thinking about getting back together with him. And one of her girlfriends called Eric to say, we saw you do this. You better explain yourself.
Very possible.
And thus, once Cory hung up, he's like, I don't even know who that was.
That makes sense.
So Cory says that Jim Abbott is in their kitchen.
Jim Abbott is in our kitchen. Well, Tyler, who is Jim Abbott?
I'm glad you asked that, Brett, because I had to ask myself that same question. Now, as a kid, I was always aware of two things when it comes to this man, Jim Abbott, that I didn't know about for sure on how they were connected. A, I knew there was a guy named Jim Abbott who was a baseball player because I watched Boy Meets World. And B, I was aware that there was a one-handed pitcher in the 90s who was really, really good. Because I, watched SportsCenter as a kid and then didn't realize that those two things were connected. So Jim Abbott is a one-handed pitcher who would pitch left-handed and use the same glove, same hand on the glove. So what he would do is he would take his glove and place it onto his right forearm. He would pitch, and then within the seconds of after the throw, part of his finish of his windup, he would put the glove back on the hand he just threw with. So he would literally pitch to people, put the glove back on, and be ready for someone to either hit a line drive right to him or put a little dimper over by him, and then would go and field it. There's clips out there of what he's done to handle those situations, and normally he handled them really good. He had a 10-year career with the Angels, also with the Yankees. That's where he spent most of his time, and he spent a season with the White Sox and also at Milwaukee. Now, the key with that is that most of those teams, most of those years, are played in the AL where they have a DH, so he doesn't have to worry about hitting. But while pitching for Milwaukee, he also was a decent hitter too. So this man was actually pretty darn incredible, and his story is amazing. He actually spends most of his time now being a speaker and traveling around the country.
I never saw him bat when he played with Milwaukee, but I did see some games live. I mean, I didn't go to the games, but live on TV where he was pitching. And find the clips, listeners. It's really impressive to see him do what he did.
But he won silver in the baseball World Cup. He won gold for the Olympics, and he pitched a no-hitter against the Indians in 1993. He truly is an inspirational figure, and now as an adult, I can appreciate him being on the show. Just, I think as a kid, it didn't mean a thing to me because I was too removed from that time period.
If you weren't watching it first run, you probably miss it. You miss a lot of the context.
But we learned that Alan sent about 63 telegrams to Jim Abbott because the two of them were not friends. As a kid, I think I always thought they were friends for whatever reason.
My friend Jim
which would make
Abbott.
sense. Yes. My dad's friend, Jim Abbott.
But how did Dad, why are you in my house?
Cory, don't ask him these children questions. So, Jim, why are you in our house?
63, is that all you got? The amount of effort that Alan went through seeing just how despondent Cory was about his dreams to just go out and send telegrams. You know, we didn't have email back then. We didn't have text messaging. We didn't have message boards. We didn't have social media where you could tag your favorite celebrities. Alan went down to his local, probably Western Union. Yeah, look it up. I'm not going to do a deep dive on it because this is off the top of my head. And paid per telegram to send 63 messages directly to Jim Abbott, asking him to come spend a couple of minutes sharing a moment with his son who is dreaming to be a baseball player and has had his dream crushed.
Now, to put into context, if we tweeted any of the people from Boy Meets World more than 5 times, hey, come on our podcast,
We'd get blocked.
We would get blocked immediately.
And probably have our account suspended for harassment.
Yes, exactly. Much different time period. But anywho, it works. Jim Abbott is in their house, and he's sharing with him what happened to him when a teacher or a coach said that he would never make it to the pros. Eric goes, you'd never have sent that to that coach. You're too cool. Like, you would never rub it in his face. He goes, no, actually, I did. He makes it clear that he went off to school. He played and was a student at Michigan, and he graduated. So he has something to fall back on. He A, graduated high school. He B, graduated from college, had a successful career. He's like midway getting close to the tail end of his baseball career. So he knows he's getting to that point where he's going to need more. And so, yeah, Cory is feeling quite inspired after this.
Yeah, and it's exactly the message that I think Mr. Feeney really wanted Cory to catch, which is very convenient for Mr. Feeney. And, of course, word gets out that Jim Abbott's there.
Apparently, I brought the wrong ball.
I mean, Cory did call Shawn and say, get over here now.
Yes. And all his friends bring baseballs. Minkus brings a basketball.
Poor Minkus.
Oh, poor Minkus, as he is pondering taking over Microsoft and the world. And so Jim leaves, and we get out into the yard, and Cory's throwing his ball in the air, and he loses it in Mr. Feeney's yard.
Yes, and this scene of Cory trying to be like, yeah, my friend Jim Abbott, this is what he said, and this is what I'm going to do now.
Not to name drop or anything.
I'm saying.
Right. I do love these little interactions, but, Feeney makes it clear to him of like, hey, I'm not against you playing sports. Mm-hmm. What I'm against is you not thinking and you just assuming everything's going to work out.
Yep.
And I love that. And he gives him all of his balls back. Good Lord, the amount of balls that are thrown back into his porch area, he's going to fall.
Oh, yeah. And the fact that Mr. Feeney has been holding on to all of those, just waiting for him to earn them back, that's definitely get off my lawn energy.
Oh, yeah. Well, you got to wonder how long has he been holding on to those?
Well, if how quickly Cory lost this baseball is any indication, that may have only been a week's worth of balls.
I was thinking like a month, maybe.
Possible.
We now go, after the balls have been released, we go to our tag. And we have Alan and Amy who are eating ice cream and snuggling and being all cute. And for some odd reason, Amy's wearing shoes, even though Alan isn't. I don't get it.
I had in my notes, I was wondering what show they were watching. I don't remember why I wrote it down.
That was
but
The Bachelor airing at this time?
That was, I don't remember if that was way before The Bachelor. But it was some sort of,
but I mean, it's some sort of dating show.
So I was trying. I didn't think to look after I was done watching the episode, but I was curious what kind of episode they would be watching.
Was Single Out on at the time?
I'm sure Singled Out was, but I don't think Alan and Amy would have been watching it.
Well, there's some cute guy with nice tight butt and skinny jeans.
Oh, yes.
Because Alan is like, why are these women willing to humiliate themselves? She goes, do you see the good-looking guy with the tight butt?
Yeah. And I had to wonder, too, the way this conversation flowed in this tag. I know it's just kind of a throwaway tag for, just to button up everything with Cory with the camera again. But Alan we start to see some rumblings and some thoughts for Alan to have a career change, wishing he was doing something other than managing a grocery store. And so,
well, would Amy think more of him if he had a different job, if he pursued a career he wanted? If he had more enjoyment over his job, because it's made very clear that Alan maybe isn't in love with being a grocer, but he has a good job and he pays the bills and he loves his family.
Well, maybe if he had a more reliable assistant manager, he might like it more.
Oh, Leonard Spinelli.
Oh, Lenny.
So in my notes, we have ice cream and snuggles, which lead to some kissing until Cory pops up with the camera.
When they thought all the kids were in bed.
Yeah. Well, clearly they weren't paying as much attention.
And clearly the camera did survive that fall.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's because they have the 2-stair system, which I don't know why. Again, 80s, 90s shows have these.
Well, you have the hallway up top, and there was a stair at each end of the hallway.
Of course.
Yeah.
So maybe he just snuck down the back area.
Oh, completely.
But again, the problem, and we've talked about this before, either Cory knows what happens with his parents when the two of them start canoodling, or he just is unaware.
Yeah, it's hard to get a read on that because when Alan got ungrounded, Cory knew enough to say he wasn't coming back. But here, he clearly seems to not have a clue that he's interrupted an intimate moment and has killed the mood.
Well, Brett, I think that's been an episode.
That has definitely been an episode.
We may have to do some editing on the careers and potentially releasing a separate video.
Part 2.
Oh gosh. But anywho, Brett, what did you learn this week?
I learned not to let your kids give up on your dreams, because we need dreamers in the world. And even though those dreams might change, we still need to hold on to those dreams. So don't give up on them. What did you learn, Tyler?
Well, what I learned is I think is kind of the opposite, actually. And that's not to get too focused on the specific dream. Because it's so easy, like for Minkus, for him to be like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to put my mind to it, and then, oh no, Microsoft is going to be much harder to do. And we see in Girl Meets World, he has a successful company, he and his family have money, so it's not like he has not achieved, and he hangs out with billionaires, potentially other billionaires, I'm not sure, they never really make clear how much money he has. So don't get so focused on a dream that you can't see also other potential close enoughs. What grade would you give this episode?
Well, I gave Class Pre-Union a grade of an A-. I contemplated giving it an incomplete, but I felt that would just make the episode run long. But yeah, an A-. Cory really had to do some reflecting this episode, and it was really Cory-centric. Eric's side plot was negligible. Morgan's was one and done. I could not stand that woman. But we really got to dig into Cory and what happens when his dream is pushed. What happens when his support system, what did they do? And what is his dad willing to do to help him? And so I was really impressed by all that. So I give it an A-.
Nice. I have to go with a C+.
Whoa.
Now, hear me out.
Okay, I'm listening.
A lot of it has to do with the fact that I deep dive into these potential future careers, and also the Morgan and Amy storyline really do drag this episode down. It's no fault to the actors. It's no fault to how great they are, but just this storyline is so bad.
It is.
And again, the other big thing is that you actually do see Feeney giving preferential treatment to Minkus. And you can even argue to Topanga at this moment. So, and that does frustrate me because I think Cory had more of his future thought out than Minkus actually did. And there's a part of me that judges Minkus in the realm of he should have known that Microsoft would not be the same.
You really hate his presentation after that deep dive.
I spent way too much time thinking about this. I really did.
Yeah.
If it wasn't probably for how much I thought about this, how much time I put into it, the amount of stocks that I looked through for this stupid company. I'm sorry, I keep saying bad words.
That's okay. We're not into explicit level. We're still family friendly.
Yes. Well, Brett, I have a dad joke for you.
All right, let's hear it.
Why did the pitcher go to jail?
The pitcher, as in the baseball pitcher?
No.
Oh, the picture, like the picture hanging on my wall.
Yes.
I think I know this one, but let's hear the answer.
Because it was framed.
Yep. I thought you had a baseball one for me there for a minute.
No, I should have, but I didn't. Trust me, there's hopefully just one more episode where I'll talk about baseball, and then hopefully Cory will be done with baseball. It's going to happen. Well, I know
we're almost midway through the first season, so.
Oh, thank goodness. I can't wait. Well, this has been an episode of Dads Meet World.
Yes, it has.
Brett, where can we find you on the internet?
Well, you can find me online on Twitter, on Instagram at Dr. Headley Art. And put art stuff up there all the time. And Tyler, where can we find you online?
Well, you can always find me at Twitter, Tyler Volk on Twitter. But hey, if you want to send us an email, tell us how you think we're doing, or leave a review, you can always do that by going to dadsmeetworld at gmail.com, or on any of your podcast feed, or even on YouTube if that's where you're choosing to listen.
That's right. And if you leave us some love, a review, 5-star rating, that lets other people find us and lets them see that, hey, it's not just Pod Meets World that's out there talking about your favorite show.
Exactly. We actually talk about the show.
And of course, we have our own social profiles for our show. You can find us at Dads Meet World on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So until next week, we'll see you. Good looking.
Until then, good looking.
You can find Dads Meet World on Facebook, Twitter, and probably a few other places just by searching for Dads Meet World. Dads Meet World is a production of Headfirst Studios. Headfirst Studios. Tell your story.
This has been a presentation of Dads Meet World.
Brought to you by Letter D. And lots of baseball.
production of Head First Studios. Head First Studio, tell your story.
That's right.
Oh god, I have to stop recording.
All right, we'll just trim all that out.
That sounds lovely.
All right.
Real quick, if we're going to trim stuff out, the amount of times I'm listening to an episode, I'm like, dear Lord, I can't believe you left that in.